All right. So again, welcome, Ms. Smith. You are a tech hero of the month. It's a pleasure when you came across my screen and I went down and read your portfolio. I was like, wow, I got to have her on. I have to have her on. I have to put on our platform, and hopefully others put you on their platform as well, because what you've achieved, especially in this industry, is remarkable. Um, I was like, yeah, she's a trailblazer. She's one of them
Well,
ones.
thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
so how this basically is going to go is we'll take the time to get to know you. We're going to continue to have a jovial time, and then we're going to and then get into some Q&A, towards the latter end of it. So just sit back, relax, get enjoy your praise, throughout the journey. Oh, okay, you got your drink with you. Listen, I got mine too as well. Like I was telling Jeff off camera that, hey, listen, y'all know I usually drink when I have my cigar, but listen, the kind of night I had and the kind of hey, I need to take it easy. My lungs saying, look, bud, my liver and lungs is like, nah. So, but either way, we still gonna have a great time. So I want to start off. So, where are you from, and how did you even get into, like, how did you become aware of the opportunities in tech?
Yes, I'm originally from New Jersey. I've had the
Okay,
opportunity
Brick
to
City.
live. Yeah. And I had the opportunity of living kind of throughout the US. And I had a short stint in North Carolina where
Never no
I
fault.
worked.
Hometown.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Where I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield in North Carolina. And during that time, I was a claims specialist, and I just moved around to a QA specialist, and I became a business analyst. And during that time, it was like the whole waterfall, right? So I was a business analyst in a room with system analysts, developers, engineers, architects, etc. But my role was really primarily getting the business requirements right for my stakeholders and giving them over to the tech team. And during that time, I saw what technology can really do, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I want to be a part of that.
Mm.
And so as time went on, I later became a systems analyst, and that's when I was exposed to APIs. I was a system analyst for Fidelity Investments, and that's where I got my exposure to web services. And then from there, I had the opportunity to work for Nationwide doing desk support
Mm.
for web services, APIs, etc. So I felt like I was a queen of the night because most of my calls would happen at night where I had to triage into Splunk, etc.
Oh, so you were working
Uh,
on call during the evening shift?
call 24/7.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you've been on that graveyard as well. Okay.
Yeah, but most of my calls would happen at night.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm the queen of the night, right? Because I'm up here triaging.
Mm.
And during that time, audit came in to audit my team, and being the only female on my team, which
Mhm.
was totally fine. The admin work came to me sometimes. And so I was helping audit get evidence around our processes, et cetera. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, I'm kind of a compliance girl. I like this. And it was like, oh, well, you should come and be a guest auditor. And
That's
so they had a
fine.
program where, people who were interested in becoming an auditor can be a guest auditor for like 3 months, right? They may spend 10 hours a week, still doing their full-time job in their organization, but just to get exposure, see how it's like. And
What year was this?
so, huh?
What year was this?
This was 2017.
Wow, that's ahead
Yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow.
And so, if I remember correctly, if I have my year right, but yeah, that's when I was at Nationwide. And so I was going to be a guest auditor. And then after talking to the leadership over there, we decided that I just should apply for the position, just move forward.
Mhm.
And so I became an IT auditor. And then from there, I worked in first, second, third line of defense. So I was, an auditor for Nationwide. Then I became auditor for Freddie Mac. Then I moved over to the first line defense
Well,
at
you can just say
Fannie.
Freddie Mac and Fannie Mac. Like, how did one just doesn't fall out of their bed in New Jersey, ended up in North Carolina.
Oh,
I
so you,
know,
you want the detail.
not in Bojangles, North Carolina, and
Get,
then end up with some of the biggest financial law firms in the world, how did these how did you fall into these opportunities after the after being a guest auditor, after gaining that experience and those skills? How did you fall into those other bigger roles of opportunities?
Relationships. At the end of the day, it's about relationships, who you know, and having courage to speak up and say, I'm interested in what you're doing. Can I shadow you? Like, what is this? Like, again, they came to audit my team and I was like, hey, what's going on here? I have some compliance background, but I'm interested in this. And just to give you a little backdrop, I used to want to be a lawyer, right? And so that whole compliance and all that was kind of like a part of who I was. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. But, back to your question, it's really about just that curiosity, right? And so people saw that I was curious and I was eager and I was hungry and I would, go do research when I had conversations with them. And that really allowed me to move on to the next role and the next role.
So I'll before we get into the bigger shebang of it all, because I mean, the thing is that
all of it's a big shebang.
No, that's what I'm saying, but I want to, because I want to dive into the mechanisms that kind of make you be this curiosity driven analytical beast.
Okay.
What does it come from? Like, what do you think? Like, what was it that you think that affected you growing up that made you be like, I can be a few in a group of many and still be a highly valued contributor? Because we know that, being a woman, especially in tech, and on top of that, being a Black woman in tech is, it's an even smaller margins, because right now we're like 2% of the industry, 2.4. But like, what is that? And you've done these things that this is prior to Black Lives Matter movement, prior to when it became a social thing about wokeism, etc. Where does this come from? Like, who told you that you could dare to be brave and audacity to step in rooms?
Yeah. I think it comes from both from my parents, my mother and father, very hardworking. And my father was an entrepreneur. He had his own business. He did construction, built houses, and I spent a lot of time with him. And he didn't really have to tell me that I can do everything. I saw him do it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm definitely a daddy's girl and emulate my father to this day. He just was very hungry, eager to learn and to provide for us. And I saw that in him. And so, one of the things he's always told me is make sure you have your own. Right? Don't depend on anyone. And I think that's what kind of really was the driving force for me, is like, I'm all I have, right? And I have to ensure that I'm gonna be okay in this world. And so that's where the grit, grind, and determination comes from.
Wow. So just being, him just being an example, your parents' example was enough to push you forward. So at what point in your tech did you say you start off as a business analyst? So did you come in with your tech degree and break into the field, or?
No. So I have an undergraduate degree in criminal justice. And then, I said, I wanted to
PSI?
Yeah.
You have a background in criminal justice and broken the tech? Okay, all right, go ahead. Tell me that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so I wanted to be a lawyer and I wanted to, defend
you were serious.
the community. Yeah. But during the time after I had my, completed my undergrad, a lot of my friends who were in law school, I was still working full time. They, had a hard time finding jobs. And this was during the Obama era, right? So when Obama took office, everybody was like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. But there weren't enough jobs for them, right? And so, and I was still working full time. And I was like, I'm not about to leave my full time, go to school, and then I can't get a job. And so, because I was thinking about doing the JD MBA program, so I went ahead and did my MBA. And during that time, like I said, as I transitioned into tech from a system analyst to tech support, that's when I also got my master's in science, information science. And so, no, I don't have a developer engineering background, didn't have an undergraduate degree, but it just came from curiosity. And I think for me, I didn't really have a roadmap either. It's just that I fell into the GRC world, which really helped me emerge myself more into technology as well, because I was doing IT audits with focus on information technology as well as cybersecurity. And that's where I really got my exposure. And then I just continued to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And I felt that in order for me to be a great auditor, I really needed to peel back the onion. It wasn't just about the processes and procedures. In order to get my stakeholders to put those controls in place, I needed to understand the system because, they see auditors as compliance, red tape, right? You're trying to stop us, right?
Yeah.
And so I needed to learn how to talk to them in their language in order to influence them that, hey, I'm on your side. I understand how the system works. Maybe not to the detail that you understand, but I understand how the system works. And this is why we need to have these measures in place to prevent, unauthorized access, et cetera.
Man, that's so amazing. So did you have any mentors throughout the way, when you made that breakthrough in your journey? Like, did you have any people that kind of looked out for you and kind of gave you some, like, were kind of key, you can even say gatekeepers or just not gatekeepers in the sense of they had the industry unlocked, but gatekeepers as in the way they help unlock the potential in you to get through certain doors and next levels?
Yeah, during the early stage of my career, I can't say I had a solid mentor. I had a great support system, and the women that were around me were content with where they were in their careers, but always encouraged me and always saw me moving and was supportive of that, right? They didn't know where I was going, and I didn't know where I was going. They just knew Jennifer was always doing something. She's on to she's on
Jennifer signed up for that. She's gonna be a part of the class that weekend. But Jennifer gonna be there. We know that.
Right. And so, just having that type of support helped me. But like I said earlier, I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't have someone say, this is what you should do. And, again, I want to, defend as a lawyer, I wanted to be a defense attorney or whatever. And then, of course, that investigation, compliance, all that has always kind of been my thing. I like structure. I like following processes and procedures and law. And so it kind of fell in place with GRC as well, right? But yeah.
And it's funny you said that because one of the things I kind of joke around and I tell students, but I also told my tribe members prior to even doing my boot camps was that, us who made it into tech, I would say before 2018 or by 2018, like there was no online, this is the path, this is the way to becoming a secure cloud security engineer or any type of cloud engineer or any type of tech professional. There was no clear cut, there was no guru, there was no that, like, you had to literally go and figure it out. And we had to actually read through books. We had to actually go to conferences and talk to different people and fall.
And we weren't at those conferences. Like, I mean,
right?
I wasn't exposed to that.
You hear me? Listen, and it'd be a rare occurrence if we run into people like us, and they're youthful and got all this. Like they have it good. It's not good. So because it's people like you that are trailblazers that have unturned every rock. Like you said, you come from basically a non-traditional background of pursuing criminal law to now, being a cloud architect, and now it's funny because you even said, like, even though you're one of those persons as you started off, you didn't know all the engineering aspects of a configuration, but you knew compliance laws and you wanted to learn more about the technical infrastructure so you could better understand, how to implement your compliance, company compliance, and have a better standing. So, again, like what do you think gives you like motivation? Like, what are you reading? Is it an Oprah talk that you saw? Is it a Brene Brown post that you saw? Like, what is it like that gives you that? Because even today, as accomplished as you are, and we're gonna get to that Fannie and Freddie Mac story, but as accomplished as you are, even up to this point, where does it all come from? And I'm just trying to give light because I want students to be able to see that we all have to muster out motivation from some source. So where does yours come from?
I mean, again, it comes from just my upbringing and watching my dad work hard. And for me, it's like I said, I've always been taught to make sure that I can handle my own, right? People aren't, guaranteed to follow through on the things you may need them to follow through on. Like, I just have to be responsible for Jennifer, right? And so what does that mean? That means, whatever life I want to have and success I want to have and relationships I want to have, I have to build that and maintain that. And so that's what just keeps me hungry is I have to take care of me. Closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? And so and I'm going to eat, okay?
You're right about that. You're right about that.
And so that's where it just comes from. It just, I want to be the best person I could be. I get one life and fell fast, fell forward, and just do my best.
So when the Fannie and Freddie Mac opportunity came across, how did you, first off, what was your initial reaction? And then two, like how did your career end up going forward after that?
Yeah, so I was at Nationwide, and Freddie Mac HR reached out to me, I want to say via LinkedIn. So they recruited me for a position. So they flew me down, I interviewed, and it was a success. And at the time I was living in Ohio at Nationwide. And so Freddie Mac is in Northern Virginia, here where I live today. And it's funny, I used to come to Tyson's Corner, this area, all the time with my girlfriends. And I used to always say, I'm going to live here one day. I'm going to live here one day. And I really believe speaking things into existence. And it happened, right? And I was living in Tyson's Corner. And so I worked for them. And then, as you may be aware, a lot of big organizations, when they're within the same little circle or triad, they kind of steal each other, right? And so Fannie Mae reached out to me and was like, hey, you want to come over here? Wow. And, it was during a time where I was thinking about taking a pause, just from work for a moment because I had some personal things going on. And I started Fannie Mae and really enjoyed it. That was where I got my first opportunity to manage a team. And so that was pretty cool. And my leader at the time believed in me. She understood how it was to want to get into management without the management title, right? Everyone wants to hire someone in management. Well, how many years of leadership experience do you have? And it's not that we don't have that leadership experience. Like, I have a PMP, I've led projects, but no, I haven't had per HR direct reports. And to me, is you can lead people without having direct reports, right? And so she understood what it was like and gave me the opportunity. So I was very grateful for that. And then I transitioned, into another role later, which was second line defense, where I provided oversight basically to the team I was on. And then at that time, AWS had reached out about a regulatory position, and then I transitioned to AWS.
How are they just courting you? They're just reaching out to you, like, how do they even know you exist? Like,
LinkedIn.
Wow. So and it's funny because I tell the students, I've been telling them, and it's great. They're like, oh, you did say that, but LinkedIn is where it's at. I mean, because I know, listen, I talk so much. I know they get tired of my voice and everything, but I just try to drop things so that I'm speaking to the future you. I know I'm talking to you now, but it's the you later on down the road where you're gonna be like, did we go say that? No,
I love it.
But LinkedIn, and I get it. Certain people are incognito. They like to live low key lives. They don't like to be all glamorous and all that. But so when it comes to managing your career, you have to take it as a business that it is, and you have to go where business is being done. And if a lot of corporate business is being done on LinkedIn, you need to be you just being there. And of course, there's no oversight at all in your resume, but with your resume showing up in the place of opportunity, you got opportunity. These Fannie Mae and AWS, these are not slouches by any means. These are some of the world's leaders in finance and technology. So what was that experience like when AWS? Did you even because this was what, 2020, 2019?
This was, what is this, 2021.
Okay, so all right, so we in a gridlock of COVID, C-19, trying to get barred, so C-19. What was that like, getting reached out by them and having the opportunity to go through their interviewing process and eventually working with AWS?
I was hesitant, I must say, because at the time I actually had a couple other opportunities.
Mm,
One to go back to Freddie Mac, and I was really excited about that position, and the leader there was phenomenal.
mm,
And then I had AWS, and the reason why I was hesitant with AWS is because of all the things that we've heard about
right.
the organization and lack of diversity, et cetera. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I'm not sure if I want to be a part of that. I've never been the type of individual who said I want to be at a FANG. Like, that's not my thing, right? My
Yeah.
thing is I just want to check, and I want to and I want to do a
Hmm.
good job, right? I want to
Right.
be successful and do a good job, right?
Right.
But that could be for BP oil down the street. I
Yeah.
you know I wasn't caught up in all that. And
Yeah.
so for me it was like, and I went through the process, and it was an interesting process, as you may be aware, some of
Yeah.
it's a thorough detailed interview, but I met some great people along the way.
Mm,
And next thing I know, here they said, we want to offer you the opportunity. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Because I had this other offer on the table too.
yeah.
And so I was like, Jennifer, move forward,
Mm,
right? Again, the offer that I had was with my prior company, and I've already worked there, right? But the leader was phenomenal. But I was like, here's opportunity for me to have AWS on my resume, learn from them. There's a lot there that I can
mm,
learn about, and really get my hands on, you know, um, AWS technologies and
yeah.
services. And so I
Yeah.
moved forward with that position. And so that was doing kind of regulatory work, kind of still in the compliance world,
Mm.
but working with regulators.
Okay. So, and what would you say looking back? Um, what would you say looking back was some of the toughest periods for you having to overcome? Um, it could be a project, it could be, a period of time, just something that kind of tells I mean, we've been talking about your ambition this whole entire time, how tenacious that is. But what was something that really tried? What's something that happened in your career that really tried the person that you are, and you had to figure out a way to get past it? Like it can be even like a tough project you had, or and you were completely lost on, or just tell me about a hard
Oh,
you had.
yeah. So fast forward, right? So I joined AWS in their regulatory space, and then I had a stint in their professional services space, because during the time when I was in the regulatory space, it was fun, interesting, it was, kind of part of my background, but I want to get more technical, right? And so I
Gotcha.
was like, I want to be a builder. I want to be a builder. How do I be a builder without, developer background, engineering background? But I was like, I want
Yeah.
to be a builder. So I had the opportunity to move over to professional services, and that's where there's builders, right? We work with external customers and we help them implement our services. And so I got some exposure there. And during that time, I started creating, okay, what's next for Jennifer? And I've always kind of wanted to be an architect, right?
Mm,
Because I felt like it would allow me to get in front of the compliance aspects that I used to advise my stakeholders on. So if I can build an application or system and already have those security controls in place, it would
mm,
just make it easier for my stakeholders to
yeah.
ensure that they're compliant with the requirements, as well as,
Implement
now we don't have to worry about, reconfigurations and
that.
replatforming because we put mess in the cloud or whatever. Now we got to pull it back out, right?
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, becoming an architect,
Yeah.
let me tell you,
About to be
it
one
was
cool child.
it was so amazing.
Mm,
But it required a lot of grit and a lot of ramp up, right? Because I didn't have that background that a lot of architects have. So I'm coming in from a GRC compliance world, right?
yeah.
Advising, I'm touching, doing some configuration here and there, but I'm not a developer,
Right.
right? And so really having the knowledge to understand how the systems work and integrate together, and this type of server and that type of server, and the mainframe, the mainframe, can we move the mainframe to cloud? Like all this stuff, understanding storages,
Yeah.
and databases, and computing. It's a whole monster out there, right? And
Yeah.
so and in my role, I was a solutions architect, so that's more of a generalist. So that's where you have to learn a little bit about everything. And so when I had the opportunity to explore this role, you go through this onboarding period where you actually have to build. something, right? You have to build something and present it, right? In order for you to kind of graduate. And
Right.
so I had to build something. So I chose to build a 3-tier web application with some, some complexities to it, which,
Okay. Okay.
but, with some complexities to it. And I tell you, it was interesting. It was interesting.
Ah.
Like there was some nights where I was like, oh my goodness, what is happening? Why isn't it working?
So you
There
on
was
YouTube and Google all night, basically.
I was on YouTube, but then I also had a mentor that, that's with you along the way, but it's still, trying to
Yeah.
understand, different aspects of what you're building. And so it was real cool. It was real cool. And so for me, that was like, when I completed the project and everything, I was like, I made it. Like I can do it, right? I can do this, right? And
Yeah.
so it was very rewarding, but it also it taught me a lot. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Yeah.
What would you say? What would you say is a misconception that a fresher would have about being or becoming an architect?
That you have to be a developer or engineer. I mean, I believe you could do anything you want, anything you want. You just have to have grit, determination. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to cry, get frustrated. You have to be willing to just walk away from the computer for a good hour, and then come back and reset, right? And you just have to be, just keep at it, right? And ask questions, right? And, do research, ask questions, find people. Right. There's a huge online community. So whether it's individuals at your current company, it's individuals on LinkedIn, I mean, don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to reach out to people. Right. And there's a huge community out here that's willing to help.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to tell students all the time is that that you have that the tech community, especially when you break inside, like we're very big on collaborating, on helping. And we're hiring managers, in fact, and maybe you could speak to this as well. Look for candidates who are about asking for help instead of just being stuck for hours and not saying anything, being able to work well with others, almost kind of elementary ideas, about, share and work with a team, and you're a team, you get further of together. Trying to like just eliminate the need to come in trying to be a SME, of all things. When, most employers, I would say, are looking for persons who have foundational knowledge, of course, of the technologies that they're working in, whether it be security engineering, cloud security engineering, cloud DevOps, etc. But they're looking for a person who's willing to come in and learn their system in the way that they're doing things as well, like open-minded to new concepts and can grasp those things. So what would you say that employers are generally looking for that you've come across in conversation and interviewed yourself that kind of helps sets them apart from other candidates? Like just like a general idea.
Yeah. So I would say, in order to succeed in the environment today, being a technologist, business acumen, you need to understand the business objectives, because at the end of the day, technology supports the business, right? And so being able to speak to your business stakeholders in a way that they understand what you're trying to convey is going to be key. So communication is key. Your written, written communication is also key too. But definitely your business acumen, and then your grit and determination. And a lot of employers today are looking for, depending on the role, they want you to have that hands-on experience. They want you to be technical, right? For me, depending on the level, I'm the type of individual, when I hire, I look for people who have that learn to be curious. I want people who can communicate, who are courageous, who are not afraid to fail, right? Because we can teach you the tech skills. I'm a product of that, right?
Yeah.
I'm a product of that. You can teach me the tech skills, right? But it's hard to teach you the personal, the soft skills,
Mm,
right? It's hard to teach the soft skills, right? And so really having those soft skills and having that eagerness and hungriness to learn the tech and come through the door with some of the tech is it's that's, in my opinion, that's what's going to take you far, right? You have to be able to communicate.
that yeah, so beautiful you said that, because it's funny. It's like it no matter, like you could go learn tech anywhere. You know,
Mhm,
anybody can teach you tech, but it's those interpersonal skills, those soft skills that are really going to get you the furthest. You know that
mhm,
cliche where they say is being successful in business is 20% technical, 80% social.
mhm,
It's the same way. And you know, as I try to tell the students, I have them doing this thing called a fear management assessment and a spade tool,
mhm,
and it's to deal with those social blockers that will get in the way of you applying for roles. Even they will get in the way
mhm,
of showing up to interviews, that will get in
mhm,
the way and deter you from completing projects and working on. It's to develop all that grit that you spoke of, that it takes to even get to the door of being available to interview and then
mhm,
executing well in your interviews. And now you said something also about about showing that you are a learner.
mhm,
So what I have students doing and something you also spoke to is like I have them doing projects.
mhm, mhm.
And can you speak to how much of a difference it makes in being able to know something off of the book terminology of technology versus actually going in there hands on and building out IM policy, going in there building out security groups, what have you. The difference that it make of that doing project work alongside of studying, how much that really impacts your skill set to be able to speak to the technology terms and kind of showcase that you built something that you spoke of earlier.
Yeah, the biggest difference is really having that hands-on, um, being hands-on with those tools. You're able to really understand how each component works, right? We can tell you some of that high level in the book or textbooks or whatever,
Mhm.
but really being able to touch it. And then also when you fail at something, the
Mhm.
book really is not going to show you, talk about the failure, right? So
Oh,
when you're configuring something and you fail and it's not working, how did you get through that? The book doesn't tell you how to get through it. The book just tells you what you need to do, and this is what it's going to look like, right? The
Pastor
book
Smith is in the building.
the book is not going to show you, okay, if this happened, right? If your security group, has the wrong IP address and or out to the world or whatever the case may be, what to do, right? To go back and look and change those configurations. The book is not going to tell you that. So when you're in an interview and someone's asking, tell me about a time when you did such and such, right? And then they start and then they start asking those probing questions. Well, like, so what happens if, you have your IP address going
Mhm.
here, or did you have a situation where it failed and it wouldn't connect? And did you have to, SH on and, jump onto the server? And if you like how you're troubleshooting, basically, right?
Man,
And so being able to articulate your failures is key, because then they really understand how you navigate failures, how you handle failures. That also shows your grit and determination, your curiosity. And then they know that you can handle things under pressure versus I just build based off of step 1 through 10. Anybody can do step 1 through 10, right? I can follow step 1 through 10 too,
tell
right? But what happens when it explodes? I won't understand because all I know is step 1 through 10, right?
oh,
Because that's what the book told me.
when I tell you, whew, oh God, because the thing about it is you already had experience in the industry prior to well, even while with AWS, you had technical experience already on the security side, and here you were still having to complete a project in order to continue to work through the program that you were in,
Mhm,
and even while being employed. It's like these freshers, they have to learn that these projects don't take them for granted as just things to mark off on a to-do list.
Mm-mm.
They are there for the very reason you stated, because the book isn't going to tell you what to do when it explodes, or when it doesn't work, or you're working on an outdated system. The version of the system you're working on it's not going to take. You have to figure those things out and learn those things through troubleshooting. It's how you get through adversity. It's how how do you think through problems? Like you said, and when the employers are having these interviews that they're going to ask you, that's what they're most curious in, because they can plug, like you said, plug and play anybody in to run a task. It's when the task doesn't run. Does that person run away and cut the computer off and never touch that task again? Then they buckle down, they ask questions, resource, they try to Google, they try to figure it out, they collaborate, they want those type of innovators to be a part of the organization. It's so funny you said that. That's amazing. So I will say also this, what's your thoughts on this whole new wave of sudden interest, and due to marketing of cybersecurity being this new phenomenon of opportunity? What's your thoughts when you see cybersecurity ads, and for people who say, I'm sure people DM you all the time, I want to go into cybersecurity. I want to go into cybersecurity. How do I get into cybersecurity? What comes across your mind when you see those type of?
Well, cybersecurity is not new, right? So for me, it's like, security's been here since day one. And, I think it's just, the momentum they're starting to see more people that look like them in the field, right? And the opportunities that they have today that we didn't, there's more opportunities, there's more boot camps, there's more programs, there's YouTube, there's all this stuff. And so now there's a group of individuals like, oh, I can do that. And I see her doing that, see him doing that, they're being successful. Oh, I want to do it too. Teach me, right? And so I think that's just where we are, is that, we have a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of information out there, and, young individuals are seeing it as a way to success. Yeah,
that's a very positive, optimistic POV. Okay, like that. Okay, you're definitely a builder. Okay, what's going on? All right, so let me ask
like you. This. I want to get off.
We're gonna have you back. That's why
this is fun.
I appreciate it. All right. So I'm gonna ask you my last question, then I'm gonna open it up for everybody else to ask. So what would you say in your experience? Because like I said, you've been lit on LinkedIn for a minute now, and you've been high achieving. But I know people get at you all the time from all different types of demographics for advice or for help. What would you say in your experience have you seen to be the most common debilitating behavior or trait that those who try to break into tech from non-traditional realms, what has been the common denominator that you see that has been the debilitation for them to be able to break through, that you've seen consistently?
Not having a structured plan. And so one of the things that I do today is I coach on I do some coaching, discovery calls with individuals. I just built out a career planner that really goes into planning your future, right? It's really, detailed, where we talk about your dream job. What is that dream job? And working backwards from that. So identifying your skills today and your skills tomorrow, things that you need to do, really tracking that. And so, I didn't have that. I just been fortunate enough that everything just lined up, for me. But I think really just having vision, where you're going and what you're trying to achieve, and looking at that daily and making sure you're checking things off daily to achieve that. When I get up in the morning, it's like, okay, what's my goal? What's my vision? Is looking at my destination and ensuring that the things that I do today also supports tomorrow, right? And so I'm trying to keep that in the back of my mind. So I think that's the biggest thing I see, is that just people don't have structure, really don't have a structured plan.
I swear, it's like you've been through the boot camp material, because that is exactly.
Oh.
And listen, and it wasn't intended. None of this conversation was intended, but we haven't had a
No, we did not.
we
Because you told me I didn't need to.
no, again, you're doing excellent. You're speaking to all the things that I want freshers to know. Is that yet? Like, we have this thing called a SPAY tool. It's specify, it's plan, it's accountability, and I forgot what the E is for, but but anyway, it's very similar, same concept basically. And it's like, no matter who you're getting taught by, no matter what institution you're walking into, if they're good, if they know what they're doing, if they've been seasoned enough themselves in the journey, they know it a better route to get to exactly where you want to be is a planned route. So, it's like, you can't. Again, it's funny because even throughout this most of this conversation, it's only been like 20-25% technical, and the rest, about social. That's to the reality of what freshers will experience in their careers, that it's going to take a whole lot more of what you have inside versus knowledge that you can obtain by books and projects to get you anywhere you want to be in this tech in your career. So I do want to open it up for a Q&A.